If you're navigating divorce or separation right now, you're probably feeling overwhelmed, uncertain, and maybe even a little lost. You're in the right place. This is the Soft Landing Divorce Podcast, where we prove that even in the midst of ending a marriage, you can move forward with dignity, clarity, and yes, peace. Today, Ken and Sarah are decoding Ontario's spousal support formula and showing you exactly how to protect your financial future without expensive legal battles. But here's what makes this episode different. They're sharing solutions and strategies that the divorce industrial complex never talks about, the approaches that can save you time, money, and emotional turmoil, but that traditional divorce professionals won't tell you exist. What you'll discover today will open your eyes to things unseen by most people going through separation. We're talking about insider knowledge that could completely change your approach to spousal support negotiations. Whether you're just starting to consider separation or you're deep in the process, our goal remains simple: to help you and your children land as softly as possible on the other side. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive in as Ken and Sarah reveal what the industry doesn't want you to know.
Hey everyone, welcome back. I've got an eye-opener coming your way today. We're doing a deep dive into decoding Ontario's spousal support formula, how to protect your financial future without those expensive legal battles. And I'm here with Ken Maynard. He's a certified divorce financial analyst and accredited family mediator with over a decade of experience. Ken, you know, you've been guiding Ontario families through separation and divorce, and you've got this whole soft landing divorce settlement method thing going on, right?
Absolutely, Sarah. And thanks for having me back on the Soft Landing Divorce Podcast. You know, I've been helping families navigate these complex spousal support issues for years now. And, well, let me tell you, the biggest misconception people have is that there's some magic calculator that just spits out a number. It's so much more nuanced than that. And that's what we're going to dive into today.
Right. So when people are going through a divorce in Ontario, they're probably thinking, okay, how much am I going to pay? How long am I going to pay it? But it's not that simple, is it?
Not at all. And here's the thing that really gets me excited about this topic. We have these Spousal Support Advisory Guidelines, the SSAG, and, well, people think they're law, but they're not. They're guidelines. The judge still has the final say, but these guidelines, they give us this amazing framework to work with.
Wait, so these guidelines aren't actually law? That's pretty important to know, right?
Exactly. The SSAG was developed by two law professors, brilliant minds, and the Federal Department of Justice adopted them in 2008. But here's what's fascinating. They created these guidelines to standardize how we calculate spousal support amounts and duration, because before that it was all over the map. Every case was completely different, and there was no consistency.
So we've got these guidelines that help create some consistency. But what exactly goes into determining how much someone pays and for how long?
Great question. So there are really two main scenarios we deal with. You've got couples with children, that's Formula 1, and couples without children, that's Formula 2, and each one has its own calculation method. But before we dive into the formulas, we need to understand what I call INDI, individual net disposable income. This is absolutely crucial.
INDI, that's a new one for me. What exactly is that?
So INDI is basically your real spending power, right? You take your gross income, you subtract your child support payments if you're paying them, you subtract taxes and deductions, and then you add back any government benefits or tax credits. What you're left with is your individual net disposable income. And both spouses need to calculate this.
Okay, so it's not just about how much money you make, it's about how much you actually have to live on after everything else is taken care of.
You've hit the nail on the head. And here's where it gets really interesting. Let's say we have a couple with children. Spouse one makes $120,000 a year. That's $10,000 a month. They're paying $1,777 in child support for 2 kids, and their taxes are about 30%. So $3,000. Their INDI would be $10,000 minus $1,777 minus $3,000, which equals $5,223.
And the other spouse?
Right. So spouse 2 makes $70,000 annually, about $5,833 per month. But they're receiving that $1,177 in child support, plus maybe $550 in government benefits. After taxes at about 20%, their INDI comes out to around $690. Now here's the magic. You add both INDIs together, and you get $12,217.
So we've got the total disposable income for both spouses. But how does that translate into actual spousal support payments?
This is where the children factor comes in. With 2 children, the SSAG puts us in the 54% to 60% range of that combined INDI. So we're looking at somewhere between $6,597 and $7,330. But, and this is important, we then subtract the recipient's INDI from these numbers. In our example, the monthly spousal support could be as little as, well, actually quite minimal, maybe $336.
That seems pretty low compared to what I might have expected. Is that typical?
You know what? That's exactly the reaction I get from most people. The thing is, when child support is already flowing, spousal support often becomes much smaller because the children's needs are being met. But without children, that's a completely different story. The without child support formula is much more straightforward, but also, well, it can result in higher payments.
Okay, so walk me through that second formula. How does it work when there aren't children involved?
So with the without child support formula, we're looking at income differential and length of cohabitation. You add both gross incomes together, figure out the difference between them, and then apply a percentage, usually 1.5% to 2%, multiplied by the years you live together. So if there's a $3,000 monthly income difference and you were together for 15 years, you're looking at potentially $677 to $902 per month.
And duration? How long do these payments typically last?
This is one of the most common questions I get, and it's so important. The general rule is anywhere from half the length of the marriage to the full length. So a 20-year marriage could mean support for 10 to 20 years. But judges consider so many factors. The recipient's ability to become self-sufficient, age, health, career prospects.
What about situations where spousal support might be denied altogether? I imagine that happens sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. And this is where people really need to understand their rights. Support can be denied if the recipient, remarries or enters a new common law relationship, if they achieve financial self-sufficiency, or if there's a valid domestic contract that addresses support. Also, and this surprises people, if someone unreasonably refuses to become financially independent when they're capable.
That last one is interesting. So the court expects people to make an effort to support themselves?
Exactly. The goal isn't permanent dependency. The courts want to see people working toward financial independence. But here's something else that's really important. Infidelity doesn't matter. Canada has no-fault divorce, so if your spouse cheated, it doesn't affect spousal support at all. The focus is purely on financial need and ability to pay.
So it's really about the financial reality, not the emotional aspects of why the marriage ended.
That's exactly right. And there's one more thing I always tell my clients about: indexing. Most people don't think about inflation, but spousal support can be indexed to the consumer price index. This means the payments adjust annually to maintain their real value. It's such an important protection for recipients.
That makes sense. Otherwise, a payment that seems fair today might not be sufficient in 5 or 10 years.
Precisely. And this is why I always encourage couples to think about indexing in their separation agreements. It prevents the need for costly court applications down the road just to adjust for inflation. It's one of those details that can save thousands in legal fees later.
So when someone's facing divorce in Ontario and trying to figure out spousal support, what's the most important thing they should know?
The most important thing is that every situation is unique. The SSAG gives us ranges, not absolutes. A judge might order support at the low end, the high end, or even outside the range based on your specific circumstances. And this is why I developed the soft landing method, to help couples work through these complexities without the adversarial court process.
Right. So it's about understanding the framework, but recognizing that your specific situation might call for adjustments.
Absolutely. And remember, these calculations we've talked about today, they're educational examples. Every case needs proper analysis with current financial information, tax calculations, and consideration of all the unique factors. That's why I always recommend people get proper advice rather than trying to figure it out on their own.
This has been incredibly helpful, Ken. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you think people should know about spousal support in Ontario?
I think the biggest thing is that spousal support isn't punishment. It's about ensuring both spouses can transition to their new financial reality with dignity. Whether you're paying or receiving support, it's about fairness and recognizing the economic impact of the marriage and its breakdown. And with the right approach, it doesn't have to be adversarial.
So as we wrap things up here on the Soft Landing Divorce podcast, what might you do differently now that you understand the factors that go into determining spousal support duration and amounts in Ontario? Maybe you'll approach those conversations with your ex-spouse differently, or maybe you'll seek out mediation instead of jumping straight into court battles. Whatever your situation, remember that knowledge is power, and understanding these guidelines can help you make more informed decisions about your financial future. Until next time, keep learning, keep asking questions, and remember, you've got this.
And that's a wrap on today's episode. Divorce doesn't have to be as complicated, costly, or drawn out as the industry often makes it seem. You have more choices than you've been told, and more strength than you may realize. Whether you're navigating spousal support laws in Ontario or facing any other family law challenge, let's simplify them together. If today's conversation resonated with you, here's what we'd love you to do. First, hit that subscribe button for the Soft Landing Divorce podcast. You won't want to miss the game-changing strategies coming your way. Second, leave us a review to help other families discover there's a better path forward. And if someone you know is struggling through separation, share this episode. Sometimes the most powerful gift is showing someone they're not alone. You'll find all our resources and connection links right in the podcast description. Remember, we're not just here once a week. We're building a community that proves divorce doesn't have to destroy families. We've got so much more to share with you in the weeks ahead, So stay tuned. Until then, keep moving toward your soft landing. You've got this, and we've got you. That's Ken and Sarah. See you next time. Disclaimer. This podcast provides general information only and does not constitute legal advice. Please consult a qualified legal professional for guidance specific to your situation.